that has been put to our hand today is how do we renationalise the NHS so successfully that even a future right-wing government cannot dismantle it.
Thank you very much.
The NHS was created in 1948 as a national service with national standards. Until recently, it provided care for rich and poor alike, designed to make sure that wealth can by no advantage, nor poverty created in family. It hasn't asked whether we have just arrived to live here, or whether we can trace our ancestry back forever. And that is why we love it. Yet it has been under attack virtually since the day it was created. The arguments against it have rarely varied since the beginning. It's too expensive. We have an ageing population. If you give something for free, people will abuse it. Foreigners will come and use it without paying. The arguments, none of these arguments are new. They're just getting amplified. And it isn't even a question of right-wing governments, because the first attack came from the very Labour government that created it in the first place. But increasingly, for at least the last 30 years, political thinking across party lines has been that the private sector delivers services better than the public sector, and that no public service should compete on the same territory as the private sector. The private sector must always take priority. There is no alternative. I was really pleased to hear Matt Dykes talking about the fact that when Carillion collapsed, which should have been, just as 2008 was, an opportunity to start looking at things again, but instead what the government is doing is reframing this. We have good privatisation and we have bad privatisation, and the bad privatisation is the fault of the bad service deliverers, not of the system itself. Some campaigners see what's happening today in the straightforward terms of underfunding, creating cuts and closures, and the privatisation of clinical services, or as a simple case of Tory versus Labour. But crucially, unlike previous cuts and closures programmes, this one isn't random. There's a redesign taking place, moving away from the traditional local services like family GPs and district general hospitals. In their place, we have US-style new models of care. And in their wake, there's a scorched earth policy of land sales, meaning the properties aren't there to expand back into if and when the money flows again. It's supported by politicians of every stripe, by think tanks and media. The panel will focus on different aspects of the problem and talk about current approaches to campaigning and how they see the future. We're hoping for some very active participation from you today. Are there different strategies we could be applying? Do people know enough about what's at stake? In a democracy, is it actually possible to preserve public service in perpetuity without constantly having to fight for it? We're going to start our discussion with Molloy, who is the editor of Open Democracy. He was previously the editor of OurNHS in Open Democracy. And she's going to address the values and principles of the NHS and talk about those structures and why they are the foundation stones on which everything else is built. Molloy.
Thanks everybody, and thanks for being here today. A few years ago, about 7 or 8 years ago, I moved from London to Stroud, which is a small, very nice town in Gloucestershire. One of the first things that happened to me when I moved there was that someone from the local Labour Party pressed a leaflet into my hand saying that Stroud's Hospital and the other 8 district hospitals in the county were leaving the NHS. And at the time, I probably knew less about the NHS than most of the people in this room. And I just thought, what? What do you mean leaving the NHS? How can this be happening? And so I knew a bit about what was going on. I knew a bit about the private finance initiative, the privatisation of the buildings, and how that can be very costly. But this was something else. This was talking about 4,000 staff, nurses, podiatrists, physiotherapists leaving the NHS. So I got involved in campaigning, but I also started researching, and I'm sure a lot of you know this, but I don't want to assume everyone knows this. You know, if we want to defend the NHS from privatisation, we have to understand how it's happening. So what I discovered was that the NHS is structured as a market. And what that means is it's divided essentially into two parts. You have one part that holds the money, the local managers, or the commissioners as they're called in common parlance. And the other part is what we probably think of as the NHS, the hospitals, the ambulance services, the clinics, and they're divided into trusts, competing against each other for government money, for contracts to provide certain services, competing for patients, and also, crucially, not just competing against each other, but competing against private firms, the likes of Virgin, KUK, etc. So, people often ask me how far has NHS privatisation gone. I mean, it's interesting when we hear the sort of lists of privatisations that are very obvious. Often the NHS doesn't figure alongside water and utilities and stuff. But actually, it's gone quite a long way. In fact, what I usually say to people is there's nothing in England that hasn't been privatised somewhere in the country. Pretty much nothing. People often don't realise because if you've got a big NHS logo and a little corporate logo quite small underneath, but you know, whether it's non-emergency ambulances, HIP operations, your booking procedures, your walk-in clinics, your clinics, your cleaning, your lab tests, your out-of-hours care, your cancer care, very much your social care, which often is stuff that used to be called healthcare and has been redefined into an already privatised system. So yeah, an awful lot has already gone and needs to come back. So what about Stroud and Gloucestershire? What about those hospitals I mentioned? Well, we campaigned, I got involved with the local campaign, very vigorously, made local Tory MPs life in misery, which was fun. And it's Labour now. And we went to the High Court, and those hospitals were not privatised. We weren't. Which is nice, you know, it's always nice to start with talk of victory. But I think to come back to where we are now, I don't really mention that as an example of how we defeat privatisation, because to be honest with you, we were very lucky, to be quite frank. And it happened elsewhere, it went through elsewhere, similar kinds of privatisations of all those district hospitals. The reason I start with that is because, as Deborah mentioned, that happened before the 2012 Health and Social Care Act. That happened, I have to say, under legislation that was put in policies that were put in place by the previous Labour government, building on the beginnings of the Tories. So, it's not good enough what I'm hearing from Labour at the moment, quite frankly, which is when it's just talk of repealing the 2012 Health and Social Care Act. That is not going to save the NHS from being killed by privatisation. It might slow it down a bit, but it's not going to stop it. Labour needs to be much bolder than that, or whatever government's in power wants to save the NHS needs to be much bolder than that. It needs to scrap the market system that's killing it. And people say it can't be done, you know, and we hear talk of this sort of idea of capitalist realism, that no one can imagine a world where it's not structured in this kind of financialised way. Well, you know, they've done it in Scotland, and it might be more difficult here. I'm not saying it's not a large country, but it's possible, you know. And the NHS, the Instatement Bill that you'll no doubt hear more about, that I'm sure some of you know about, is an attempt to begin to do that, to get those markets out. It's apart from anything else, and I wish I'd like to hear politicians say this a bit more as well. It's not just immoral to be making money out of healthcare, it doesn't really work. And it's hugely costly as a result, because even neoliberals know that actually, you know, healthcare doesn't really operate very well as a market. It's not like going to the supermarket to buy food. And to make it work, you have to have a huge amount of incredibly bureaucratic administration overseeing all these kind of bidding processes and stuff that Matt was talking about earlier. In fact, my own research that I read about freedom and democracy suggests that the additional cost of running the NHS in this unnecessary way so that the private sector can get their hands on the bits they want could be as high as £30 billion a year, which is a quarter of the NHS's entire budget. So we're suspecting why we don't often hear that in the media when they're talking about the cost pressures on the NHS. So, the fact is that if you want comprehensive universal healthcare, then providing it from a single payer, tax-funded, centralised, scale source like the NHS is the only cost-effective way to provide that level of comprehensive universal healthcare, as studies from places like the Commonwealth Fund, international comparisons have shown. What I also realised in the course of my campaigning and writing on the NHS over the last few years, though, is that the NHS, perhaps even more than some of the other things we're going to hear about today, like rail and water, is not just about structures, it's an idea. And it's an idea that is incredibly precious to people in the UK. It's an idea of comprehensive, universal healthcare. In other words, that we get all the health. Has my microphone gone?
Yeah.
Stand back a bit, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Can people hear me all right if I'm here? Yeah. So the NHS is an idea that we get all the healthcare we need when we need it by well-qualified, well-rewarded, properly regulated staff. And that idea of that comprehensive universal care is a big part of what gets in the way of full privatisation. I'll say more about this in a minute. This idea, therefore, is under attack right now. In fact, it's been under direct attack by our Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, this very week. Before I get on to Matt Hancock, though, I'm going to talk about a rather nicer Health Secretary, Nye Bevan, founder of the NHS, who said, and this is my favourite Nye Bevan quote, I'll share it with you. He said, "Society becomes more wholesome, more serene and spiritually healthier if it knows that its citizens have, at the back of their consciousness, the knowledge that not only themselves, but all their fellows have access, when ill, to the best that medical skill can provide." Yay! Yay! I need to speak up. So the British public agrees with this vision. 95% say that it is important to them personally that everybody gets the best healthcare. And this idea was embedded in law from 1948, the NHS's foundation, until 2012. The Secretary of State for Health used to have a legal duty to provide or secure comprehensive healthcare for everyone in England. The NHS, but they scrapped that in 2012. So the NHS is about shared risk. It's what Nye Bevan called pure socialism. It included a recognition that poor health can be down to luck and can be down to social factors like poverty that make good health harder to achieve. But the private sector don't care about any of that. They just want to cherry pick the predictable stuff that's easy to make profits out of. And they want to segment us into different risk pools and provide different offerings, different care pathways, depending on how profitable our needs are for them. And this is what you'll see if you start looking at minutes and stuff. This is the language. And you see it, for example, in GP at Hand, which is an app now which provides NHS GP services with government cash, but only for the young, fit and healthy. There's a long list of exclusions of patients that they don't want. All of this segmentation obviously is ultimately compatible with a US-based insurance model, because the private sector knows it can't provide healthcare, all the healthcare everyone needs, for profit. In fact, the one time it tried to provide a full service NHS hospital was at Hinchingbrook in Cambridgeshire, and it was a disaster, and that hospital got the worst report from the regulator that any hospital has ever had. So they've got a bit of a problem. They've got the structures in place, but it's the principles that have held them back. And so they are starting a war on this idea. They started, of course, with the most familiar and useful scapegoat of all, being migrants, and we've already seen a lot of stuff about that in the news. But this week, and I'll just end on this, don't worry. Matt Hancock used rather different language to talk about what the NHS was. he said, you may have seen some coverage of this, he said, at the heart of our NHS is a contract. We've talked too much about our rights to healthcare. We need to pay more attention to our responsibilities as well as our rights. We need to take greater responsibility for managing our own health. So, and we see this kind of language already creeping in, where we see in about a third of the country, people who smoke or are even moderately obese have now faced blanket exclusions from NHS policy. It won't get from NHS operations apart from emergencies. It won't actually save money, but what it's really good at doing is bringing that very useful narrative of deserving and undeserving that we've seen work so well in the benefit system for the government into healthcare. And I would like to see all of us here today, in terms of what we're going to answer that initial question, what are we going to do to make it unprivatisable and roll it back? We really need to push back and defend that idea that everyone deserves healthcare. I would like to see, I was disappointed, to be honest, in the Jonathan Ashworth, Labour's Health Secretary's response, where he talked legitimately about the money that's been cut from preventative services, but he didn't really push back on that kind of patient-blaming agenda enough. I'd like to see Labour doing that, and I'd like to see all of us pushing our councillors to scrutinise the local plans that pretend that if we all just behave ourselves, it doesn't matter if we close down our local hospitals. We need to fight for not an NHS with this patient-blaming market agenda that suits the corporates, but an NHS that suits all of us. Thank you.
I have to say, Caroline, rather like me, she gets so full of anger and a passion for this subject. We can both talk behind legs of donkeys, so. I'm calling up next Dr. Amin Kamlala, who is a GP in Tower Hamlets, who actually is a fairly recent joiner to the campaign world. But this is also really exciting because for him, this is something he has also become inspired by. He has understood as a GP working in an area where there are quite high levels of deprivation, exactly what this really means for people on the ground. Thank you very much.
Good to keep hydrated. Morning. Wow, amazing. It's great to be here talking to you about what I feel very passionate about, which is, of course, the NHS. And as usual, we only come up with an excellent question, which is really forward-thinking and really practical. How do we renationalise the NHS so successfully that even a future right-wing government cannot dismantle it? As I usually do, I come up with more questions, and I've come up with two, which I'll use to try and tackle what we ended up asking. And the first question is, success for whom? And how do we measure it? I think we measure success, and we must measure success by patients. So, in a marketised healthcare system such as ours, those most in need of healthcare are those least likely to have access to good services. I work in a part of Tower Hamlets with high levels of social disadvantage and feel very uncomfortable telling my patients who've waited weeks to see me that they'll be waiting months for their referral, or even that their treatment is no longer available in the NHS. So, success is public health policy based on addressing the barriers to good health that exist in society. And healthcare policy that has been assessed for its likely impact on our most disadvantaged groups, the working class, people of colour, and immigrants. Because a public service NHS leaves no patient behind. And secondly, we must also measure success by staff. In an increasingly privatised healthcare system such as ours, doctors, nurses, and allied healthcare professionals are increasingly disempowered. As a GP, I feel I have no choice in seeing another patient every 10 minutes for around 6 hours a day. or being expected to take a call from another patient every 5 minutes for 3 hours straight. It's something I find not only personally very stressful, but also at times unsafe. So, success is new, fit-for-purpose whistleblowing law. Only then can we confidently speak out against unsafe staffing levels, avoidable deaths, and sexual harassment without losing our jobs or being subject to non-disclosure agreements. Because in a public service NHS, both patients and staff are protected from harm. I've got another question. Are we assuming that a future left-wing government cannot dismantle the renationalised NHS? It's a rhetorical question. So thirdly, we must protect the NHS from politicians. We need to understand how we got here, and I think Deborah and Caroline have explained a little bit about that. We must understand how we got here. We must understand the history of how we got here in order to prevent repeating past mistakes, and so we can formulate effective solutions. The current government lobbyist register is woefully inadequate, covering fewer than 5%, yes, 5% of lobbyists, in a £2 billion industry with over 4,000 employees. In-house lobbyists are unaccounted for. Details on communications are thin, as is information on whether lobbying organisations have hired former MPs in civil service. So we protect the NHS and public services in general from politicians of all persuasions by legislating against corporate capture, starting with a comprehensive register of lobbyists. Because in a public service NHS, there is no revolving door between the public and private sectors. And finally, and by no means least, and this is something I think I probably feel most passionate about, we must protect the NHS with our youth. As George Lakoff, the cognitive linguist, says, it's absolutely essential that we have a compelling alternative frame if the old one is ever to be debunked. At work, I often have students sitting in on my surgery, trainee doctors, nurses and others. Some are excited about Babylon Health's GP at hand, despite this form of pseudo-technology posing an existential threat to the NHS. And others are frustrated by the lack of political and ethical discourse at medical school. So, we protect the NHS by winning the battle of ideas, and I don't think we have won it yet, actually. Influencing culture and taking discussions like these into universities throughout the country. A public service NHS knows what my friend Farzana Khan says to be true. Stop saying that the youth are our future, because in doing so you deny them the present. So to conclude and in summary, we can and we must create a blueprint that engages socially disadvantaged patients, disempowered staff, corrupt politicians, and impressionable students with specific actions. A renationalised NHS puts people before profit. Yes, of course it does. But a successful and resilient, and I would add representative and inclusive NHS, puts people before ideology too.
That was wonderful. Thank you. And our last but not least speaker is Dr. Tony O'Sullivan. Those of you in the room who are NHS campaigners, he almost needs no introduction. He is the co-chair and Keep Our National Health Service Public. He was one of the leading lights of the Lewisham Save the Lewisham campaign. He is part of the reinstatement bill group, and we're very, very pleased to have him this morning.
Thank you very much, Deborah, and we own it for inviting me, and it's great to see everybody. My simple answer to the challenging question how do we renationalise the NHS so that it can never be dismantled, is really that we can't unless we have the movement that wins it back not dismantling itself when we've won, to carry on campaigning in the education about the value of public services, alongside proving that they are better than anything that the private world can throw at it. Just at the time, I've been able to scrub bits of my speech out as the others have spoken, so I hope I will be on time, but kick me if I'm not. I wanted to go back to something in my working life. I retired 2 years ago. We've got a children's centre in Lewisham called Kaleidoscope, and in there are all the agencies working together for children with disability and additional needs, including mental health. We have the community health services, doctors, nurses, therapists. We have the mental health services for children. We have the special educational needs services. We have the disability social work team, and we have the care coordination services, all in one place, 270 staff. Did we need Simon Stevens to tell us how to integrate services? No, we didn't. In the project to build Kaleidoscope, which is a wonderful building on the High Street in Lewisham, the threat was that it would have to be a PFI building, or in newer jargon, lift scheme. And we wanted it to be an NHS-owned property. We struck a deal where there was £1 million gap, and we set up a charity called Children First Solution, and the Strategic Health Authority bought that. And the Kaleidoscope building is an NHS-owned building. It was procured completely by the NHS. It was delivered by our own estates team. It went in on budget, and it went in on time, and it saved the NHS health economy £1 million a year for 20 years. I agree with the caveats that other speakers have said, but we cannot rely just on the name of a political party that it will guarantee the safety of the future of the NHS. I know that. But also, I know that we will not nationalise the NHS back again unless we have a change of government. So in there's a dilemma. And I would say that on the one hand, we will not win the NHS without a change of government. And on the other hand, we will not have a change of government unless the Labour Party comes out fighting day after day, aggressively, assertively, vocally, in favour of the value of public services. So, Caroline alluded to the insidious growth of privatisation in the NHS, and she's quite right. But I also want to say that some people argue we've already lost the battle and the NHS has been privatised, and I think that's wrong. It gives the wrong message. 7.7% of clinical contracts and CCGs were in private hands in the year 2016-17. A year later, in fact, for the first time for many years, that had gone down a bit to 7.3%. Why was that? Because some of the private contracts had failed so abysmally, they'd come back into public hands. Nevertheless, there's privatisation in catering, cleaning, portering, security, car parks, pathology services, radiology services, and this has got to be called out and it's got to be stopped. One of the ways we will win the argument for the NHS is to show that public service is better than private. We have to argue for the coming together of health and social care. We have to take back the language that's used and abused by Jeremy Hunt and now Matt Hancock and Simon Stevens that they're integrating services. What they mean is integrating structures, integrating budgets, and transferring that power to control the NHS into private hands. What we mean is integrated care for the patient when they need it, so that they get health, social care, and for children, education services joined up for them. I think we need to show the economic sense of our argument. And I watched a video the other night which was stunning, really. It was the President of Iceland promoting the value for a capitalist economy of public health and public education. Now, his argument is that the workforce has to be educated and healthy so that capitalists don't have to worry about those things and they can get on with their capitalism. What we see there, though, is actually financial logic, common sense, and the argument is powerful, backed up by the International Monetary Fund, that investment in health gives a fourfold feedback to the economy, and of course, investment in education gives a ninefold feedback to the economy. So what we have to do is say, public services, yes, they work, but they're going to be even more powerful when they're for a socialist society in social hands. We need legislative change, there's no doubt about that. There won't be any renationalisation without a change of government, as I've said before. But nevertheless, as the Health and Social Care Act was going through Parliament, there were already efforts made by certain people, including Alison Pollock, who should have been standing here today to talk about that, but I will give a positive version of it, I hope. Alison Pollock, Peter Roderick, David Owen, who you may know used to be a top Labour politician and Foreign Secretary, and I never thought I'd be in the same room as him, but he said he was wrong when he promoted the market. He was wrong when he agreed with Blair about the market being, the competition being good for better healthcare, and they started to develop what is now the NHS reinstatement bill. And this is the latest version of it, put through as a private member's bill by Eleanor Smith, with the second reading on the agenda the other week, but unfortunately didn't get any time. It's nevertheless important that it's part of the parliamentary timetable. The aim of the reinstatement bill and the campaign was to get the Labour Party to agree to catch up in a way with the Green Party, the Scottish Nationalist Party, Plaid Cymru, to the national service, nationalising the NHS is right, and we have to reject the past. It's been a hard job to do that. We've won over now a public statement from John Ashworth, the Shadow Health Secretary, who in public signed the NHS Take Back pledge, which was launched by We Own It in discussion with us. And I think that's a very powerful step forward. It's partly there it's about tactics, because the NHS reinstatement bill is a long, detailed look at how far, by reversing how far how far the NHS has gone towards a privatised service. The NHS Take Back was 5 basic pledges that was much easier to pin down MPs on, and we've got 110 MPs to sign that, which is double the number of Labour that ever engaged with the NHS reinstatement bill in full. It was too easy for them to wriggle out of it. So I feel that we should continue that assault on the consciences of MPs to say, come and adopt these principles, engage with them, go on to say the full statements of the bill are important, and we've made a lot of progress there. The state we're at the moment is the Labour Party has agreed that it will work with campaigners, with Alison Pollock, with Peter Roderick, and will draft a bill of its own that will be based on the principles of this to take back the NHS. So there are tactics involved. Very, very briefly, what the bill says is it will end the marketisation of healthcare, and that will stop the use of illness as a commodity. It will end the commissioning and the contracting of services, and it will return to the position in the past where local health boards working with local government will decide what the local need is. It will be part of a national structure with national terms of condition, national quality standards, national aims, and the market will end. The bill also ends a damaging competition between NHS services. This was a typical Blair principle that competition between hospitals would be good for the NHS, and in fact it's been disastrous. It will end the financial waste entailed in contract development, in competitive tendering, in defensive legal appeals, defensive behaviours, commercial secrecy, profit margins, conflict of interest. But it will also release so much human talent and resource back into public service, rather than servicing the market. In the longer term, I think we just have to recognise that neoliberalism isn't going to die. We'll have to invest to prove the value of public health service. We'll have to make sure that it funds and trains enough staff so that we don't have 110,000 vacancies. We have to bring social care back into the public domain so that as right of place, health and social care will be delivered in the public interest for the public, funded by the public, and provided by the public. There will be an ongoing battle of ideas. And I think already women are far, far ahead of men in understanding the importance of healthcare, and we have a job to do to educate men. But I think what was said before, this education has to be part of primary school, secondary school, further education curriculum to educate the people about the value of public service. And otherwise, it will never be safe from being privatised. We can show that public health makes economic sense. Caroline referred to the Mirror report from the Commonwealth Fund in 2014. That showed that the NHS was the best in the world of all the major health economies by far. The one outcome that it was second to the bottom, beaten only by USA, was, and you may laugh at this, but was mortality and health outcomes. But health outcomes and mortality are not determined by the health service, they're determined by poverty, by access to education, by women's health, by a whole number of factors, by delayed access to care. And we know that if we invested in the health service anything like the other European economies, and it was money spent by the public for the public, we would have the best health care in the world.